Hello and welcome to New Year's Eve. As the weather is frightfully awful outside, I thought I would get some crib notes, and this evening we would cover nuclear war. Welcome to a selection of nuclear war fiction. As this is a rather sensitive subject, and why shouldn't it be? It is, after all, the end of the world for everyone. As the song goes, "We will all go together when we go," by Tom LaHaye. I invite you to come along on the most perilous journey into hell. We will discover the most difficult ways in which to experience nuclear war in all its technicolor glory. Many of these books are not for the faint of heart and require strong nerves. I have recommended these novels because I believe that they stand as a lesson to all mankind. Let's hope cooler heads and minds prevail in the face of the bleakness of total destruction. I haven't covered every novel, as there are so many. However, if this is something you are interested in, I will at a later date do each book individually, as they are quite a devastating look at what if the big one drops on us and how would we survive. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the reviews. Let the adventures begin. We will start with Alas Babylon by Pat Frank. Written in 1959, and this is the United Kingdom's first edition by Constable & Co. And it's probably one of the earliest examples of nuclear war fiction, along with Nevil Shute's On the Beach, which we will cover as we go through this pile of books. We're based in the small town of Fort Repose in Florida, and we are going to be following the adventures of Randy and Mark Bragg, two brothers. Mark, who is the elder brother, and he's the father to Peyton and Ben Franklin, and is the husband to Helen. He's like the sensible older brother. He's the officer in the American Air Force for Strategic Air Command, known as SAC, in Omaha. He's responsible for the nation's arsenal, and unfortunately he is killed when the first strike happens because he's in this thing called the hole in the ground. With the other officers, it doesn't come out that he's died until near enough the end of the novel. I'll try not to spoil it for you, but I should imagine, as this is such a famous book, most people will have read it or will be in the process of reading it. We'll go on about Randy Bragg, who is the younger brother of Mark. He's a bit of a playboy, part-time lawyer, failed candidate for the political office. He's basically left with Mark's wife, Helen, and his two children. So he has to take care of his instant family. He has a faithful dog called Gaff and a very, very dear friend called Dan Gunn, who happens to be the doctor, who is quite possibly the only doctor left in the United States of America because of the nuclear war that happens. He has a love interest, Elizabeth McGovern, who he calls Lib, and he later marries her in the novel. Basically, Randy, not used to having an awful lot of responsibility, suddenly gets the world on his shoulders, and he has to protect all the people that live in the town and what's left of the town. And we're going along to find out how he does it. John Lennon is a famous pacifist, was a famous pacifist, and he was given a copy of this novel by journalist Larry Kane in 1965. Apparently Lennon spent all night reading the book, and he insisted that all the political elite of the world should be given a copy to read before they decided to enact the final act of self-destruction. I would definitely say that this novel should be in the top 100 novels that you should read before you die. It was, interestingly, made into a television show for Playhouse 90. It starred Don Murray, Burt Reynolds and Rita Moreno. Notable writers: William R. Forstchen credits Alas Babylon as his influence for his novel 1 Second After, which is an EMP attack on a small town of Black Mountain in North Carolina. And you'll probably know of David Brin, who wrote The Postman, and he says Alas Babylon was the inspiration for his novel. As you can see, Alas Babylon is the grandfather of nuclear war genre, and thus this is why I have chosen it for this collection. The next one we're going to cover is Robert Swindells' Brother in the Land. I have already done a review of this in my Hackvent calendar for day 17, so I won't go over this too much, but we'll start with Danny Lodge. He is the protagonist, and we follow him and his brother as they go and try to survive after a nuclear bomb has landed on the fictional Yorkshire town of Skipley, or not Shipley as I keep getting to. Very close in name and nature, but as far as I know, Shipley hasn't been nuked as of December the 31st, 2023. I'm pretty sure Shipley's still there. So anyway, if you would like, I have this as part of Hackvent calendar. You can find the review there, but I had to include it in this because it is a classic young adult novel, and it's quite the shocking read. You'll see why when you go through it. The next one on my list is Down to a Sunless Sea by David Graham. First published in 1979, and this copy is from 2007. I've already covered this on day 19 of Hackvent calendar, so there is already a review up there, but we'll just start off with Captain Jonas Scott and his 600 passengers and crew are on a jumbo jet liner, a Boeing 747, and they're left without a destination and a country when nuclear war breaks out when they're flying from New York to London. An amazing selection of characters are in this novel. It's absolutely heartbreaking and devastating. If you're not crying by the end of this novel, you have no soul. Because it is absolutely, utterly heartbreaking. A marvellous, marvellous novel. Makes you feel as though you're on the flight, which is always a good thing. And yeah, I highly recommend it. The next one on our list is James Herbert's Domain. The Rats Have Inherited the Earth. I covered this on day 14 of Hackvent calendar, but because it's nuclear war related, it had to go in the selection. I know that the novel is part of a trilogy, but as a standalone nuclear novel, it's actually quite horrific, especially throwing the rats in. Not only do we have to contend with being blown to smithereens and dying of radiation poisoning, we also have been eaten by rats to look forward to. Our poor Steve Culver, all he wanted to do was live a normal life, but on the day of days, it being his last normal day on Earth, he crosses the path of Alex Dealey, who is a government worker, and together they fight for their survival and entry into the last of the nuclear bunkers in London. Unfortunately, the rats have other ideas. On their way, Steve bumps into a lovely young lady called Kate Garner, who he rescues from the rats, and I would say it was definitely love at first sight. Now Steve has someone to protect. Will he and Kate make it? As I said, they're in an underground bunker in London, a safe haven of the government. What could possibly go wrong? The rats have inherited the earth. Yes, indeed they have, and we must try to survive. Oh, an absolute classic for you now. Vintage Neville Shute on the Beach. It was written by Neville in 1957. He's a British author, and when he emigrated to Australia, he got the inspiration to write this novel. It was first published, as I say, in 1957 by William Heinemann, and this copy is from 2009 by Vintage. The novel details the experiences of a mixed group of people in Melbourne as they await the arrival of deadly radiation spreading towards them from the Northern Hemisphere following nuclear war some years previous. As the radiation approaches, each person deals with impending death differently. Shute's initial story was published as a 4-part series, and it was titled The Last Days on Earth in London. It was a weekly periodical in the Sunday Graphic in April 1957. For the novel, Shute expanded the storyline. The novel has been adapted twice as a film, in 1959 and in the year 2000, and once as a radio broadcast for the BBC in 2008. The phrase "on the beach" comes from a Royal Navy term that indicates retirement of service, no longer in service. The title also refers to T.S. Eliot's poem The Hollow Men, which include the lines, "In this last of meeting places, we grope together and avoid speech, gathered on this beach of the tumid river." In the printing of the novel, including the first edition in 1957, it contains Eliot's poem on the title page under Shute's name, including the above quotation and concluding lines. "This is the way the world ends, not with a bang, but a whimper." And it most definitely is a whimper. Fantastic novel. I highly recommend. If you ever wondered how people would react to nuclear war, then this is a fine example. The next one on the collection is The Death of Grass by John Christopher. It was the first edition done in 1956 by Michael Joseph of London, of which this is a copy. We follow the adventures of John Custance and David Custance, their two brothers, who in the beginning of the novel meet old grandfather Beverley, who owns the farm Blind Gill. This farm becomes the Garden of Eden to the survivors who manage to escape from the madness of what is left of the United Kingdom. It's protected by the River Leap, which runs for 35 miles or so-ish, and is very deep and fast and dangerous in parts. Blind Gill has one way in and one way out, and is heavily guarded by David Custance and the townsfolk. Problems start when John turns up with his family and the band of survivors that he's collected along the way. He must fight his way in or die. The death of grass is a virus called Chung Li, and it kills absolutely every imaginable piece of grass. All your wheats, all your barleys, all your oats, everything that we eat to survive, bread, you name it, biscuits, there's nothing, because the virus Chung Li kills it all. So this novel covers how everybody survives after the death of all the grass. It covers rape, murder, starvation, and our planned death by atomic bombs to be detonated over all the major UK cities by our benevolent government. This is because they can no longer feed us, and because America won't send any more food because they have no longer got any to spare. The government plans are leaked and they are overthrown, and anarchy descends upon what's left of the populace of the United Kingdom. Will the brothers survive? Will their families reach the safety of Blind Gill? Gosh, it's quite the novel. It covers so many political points, social points, how people react to each other, how families react to each other when left with nothing. If you ever wanted to know the dynamics of the human race when faced with utter devastation, this is the novel for you. It is quite the journey into hell. And finally, our last novel that we're going to cover is called Children of the Dust by Louise Lawrence. It was first published by Bodley Head in 1985, and this edition is from Red Fox in 2002. And as the inspiration on the inside goes, for the children, that they may never know the dust. We start with Sarah and her family. They have to stay cooped up in a tightly sealed kitchen for days on end, dreading the inevitable radioactive fallout and the subsequent slow, torturous death, which seems almost preferable to surviving in a grey, dead world, choked by the dust. Then out of the ruins and the dust and the destruction comes a new life, a new future, and a whole brave new world. A nuclear war devastates the earth. A small band of people struggle for survival in a new world where children are born with strange mutations. Everyone thought when the alarm bell rang that it was just another fire practice, but the first bombs had fallen on Hamburg and Leningrad. The headmaster said it was a full-scale nuclear attack, and quite honestly, this is quite a shocking novel for young adult readers. It's very disturbing and very shocking for its time, being it was written during the 1980s and at the height of the Cold War. It's a very dystopian in nature and quite the most fantastic novel. I highly recommend this for a beginner into the nuclear war genre, as it covers a gentle way into nuclear war, because let's face it, this novel is based for children and not necessarily for adults, but it's a good starting point. I highly recommend it, and I am absolutely sure you will absolutely love it. So, as I said in the beginning, I haven't covered every single novel, as there are so many, but I thought I would just give you a few to give you an idea of what nuclear war is all about. It certainly is a journey to hell. It is not one that any of us want to go on. I hope cooler minds prevail, especially as we are facing so much devastation and destruction at the moment. I would hope when we go into 2024, we can take a step back and give ourselves a chance to breathe, because failing to do so will be failing all of us. I was thinking an awful lot about a gentleman called the Canadian Prepper, Nate, you know who you are. I hope that what you have been reporting on is just something for you to report on and doesn't necessarily come to fruition, because if it does, we are going to be experiencing something along the lines of what these books are trying to tell us in their own way. I would not recommend say no to nuclear war. Say no to nuclear warheads. They are there as a deterrent, and hopefully they will never ever be used. I would like to say Happy New Year now, and good luck for 2024, and let's hope that next year gives us a wonderful year and lots of adventures that we can all go on in the safety of a novel. And let's see what 2024 brings. And I'll say what I always say: happy readings, darlings, and enjoy.